What's up, sports fans around the world? It's your favorite big three coming from you from Back Sports Page. I'm Tyrone Stallworth.
And he's frozen. Usually Ahmed does that.
I'm I'm sorry, guys. This flag. One week, hopefully last week.
Oh man. For once you're not lagging and Tyrone is. Uh,
Thought it was me.
All right, so as Tyrone said, he's Tyrone Stallworth. I'm Jared Zero. And then we also have, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Ahmed Shifa. Good to be here, y'all.
Awesome. All right, let's get. Oh. All right, there we go. We're good. We're good.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. What's up,
Oh
sports?
God.
We're doing that again.
It's your favorite big three coming from you live from Back Sports Page. I'm Tyrone Stallworth alongside Jared Zero and Ahmed Shifa. How you guys doing? Sorry for the delay.
No, you're good. I kind of took over for you on that one when you froze up. And,
Oh, nice. Thank you.
I was like, usually Ahmed's the one
Thought it was
that
us.
freezes.
Man, I don't know what it is, man.
But yeah, I mean, it's good to be back. I mean, we didn't record last week. You were at a cookout. We were all kind of just tired and whatever. So it's nice to be back on the air.
Yeah, I had to celebrate Juneteenth one time for the fun time.
No, I get you. We do have a guest coming on today. Adam Cohen of Back Sports Page will be joining us a little bit later to discuss some baseball, educate some of us that don't know nearly as much. But it's an exciting time. The NBA is back. They came up with a day, I believe it was July 30th is the official day. They are going to be playing in Disney, which I think is pretty cool. What do you guys think?
Can't wait, man. I can't wait. I think the interesting thing is that they just, got results from the NBA players for the coronavirus. 16 out of 300 plus players have it. So that'll be interesting headline to follow throughout, the games and whatnot.
Yeah, who were some of the notable names that were tested positive?
I know Jokic is a big one. He can't even get back to the U.S. right now because of guidelines and regulations with that. I think that's the biggest name I heard of coming out that bunch right now.
Fair enough. I also heard Malcolm Brogdon also tested positive. I don't know who else tested. I know I heard a few names, but I've been hearing also varying things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's exciting to finally get back to it. And now that we officially have a time, a place, the one thing that's going to be interesting is now. The one thing that I always thought in the NBA was one of the biggest factors for teams was that home court advantage, hearing those fans cheering for you. Do you think that this is going to affect them one way or another? Like, do you think there's a team that maybe thrives more off of the energy from their fans than another team? Or who do you think is going to suffer the most? Who do you think is going to succeed the most?
I think that the Heat are going to suffer the most because their road and home splits are just crazy, right? They were one of those teams that couldn't lose at home. I think the team that's least affected by it would be like the veteran teams, like the Lakers. I don't think they'd be highly affected just because they have a lot of experience in the playoffs. So I think they would thrive in those type of environments.
Fair enough. I think that's a good point. I think, I don't disagree with you on the Heat. I think losing their kind of that edge, like you were saying. One team for me that I think is going to be a little bit interesting is the Bucks. Mm-hmm. I'm always 50-50 on the Bucks when it comes to that home crowd that they have, because they're one of the most hyped fans you see when Giannis is playing. And so I don't know. Like, do you think that will affect them?
It would. but I think their team and their coach. I think their coach is a big factor with that, which is why I didn't really say the Bucks.
Sure.
I think they're one of those teams that really struggle in the playoffs anyway. As far as in comparison with the regular season, so they're going to be a special case. Like everybody's going to have their eyes on Giannis to see if people wall up on him and things like that and how he responds. So that's valid.
I think the Celtics are going to actually suffer a little bit. I know Brad Stevens loves to get the fans going, especially that one game where he had Taco come in and he's like telling
Yeah,
everyone hype up, hype
yeah,
up.
yeah. That was great.
So I think that's going to put a damper on them. But I mean, I just think it's time for the Celtics to release Taco into the NBA. He's like dominating the G League, and everyone's like, just put him in the NBA already. Or put him in with everybody. We want him. We want him. So I uh, I do want Taco Fall to play. I think I don't know what it is. Like he's just so lovable. Like I don't know what it is about him.
Yeah, man. I think it has everything to do with the 7'6" that he has. 7 foot 6 inches.
Yeah, he's a tall
What
guy.
about, what about you, Shifa? What you think, man?
Well, first of all, I think you should get at least a few minutes. Like, I just want to see that. I just want to see how it looks. Will fit. I think that's what the Celtics should say. um, my team would be the Denver Nuggets because I think they got that mile high,
Yeah.
that home court. Yeah, I think so too. Like, it's not as good as say Milwaukee, Miami, but I think that's something of like the altitude, whether it's like they're fast paced. I think it helps them a lot. And I think you guys are right. Like, I look at the Lakers and the Bucks, sort of, and the Clippers, a boat of veteran teams. So I don't know how it's going to look for Giannis in the playoffs, but I agree. I would think like they'll be fine wherever they are. But I think it's the Nuggets. I'm not really sure if there's much. There are a lot of teams that have home court advantage. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, any sleeper teams you think that might actually benefit?
Uh, if I had to pick one, first of all, let me do this. Let me pull up a list of all the teams, all NBA teams returning, because if I had to pick who I think my sleeper team would be, goodness, I wouldn't even know where to begin. I'd probably say I feel like the Pacers would be my sleeper team, just because with is Victor Oladipo, he's back, right? Yeah, he came
Yeah.
back already. I just think with their complete roster, they're just people underestimate them too much. Like I feel like people are going to go in and underestimate how good those guys actually are, and by the time they realize like, oh, they came out to play and they mean business, I think it's going to be a little late.
Not bad. That's not a bad choice. I wouldn't have picked the Pacers only because I see them as one of those teams that, second round, third round knockouts.
But that's my point. Is like that's how people look at them.
Mhm.
I feel like some of the teams that are favorited to go to the finals are going to look at them and be like, if they're supposed to be a second round exit, we're just going to play half strength, and then
Yeah.
3 games later they're like, we're down 3-1 to them. So maybe not that many. I feel like they'd adjust faster, but I feel like people are going to underestimate
It'll be a
them.
tough 6-game series kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They're definitely a tough out. Just based off of Oladipo and the defensive team that they have alone. It'd be interesting though.
I also think from the West. Oh, go ahead, Ahmed.
I was just gonna say, like, when you guys say out of the West, I would actually say like the Spurs and the Thunder off the top of my head. I feel like, especially the Spurs, like this with what's happening, like rest and like they're a sleeper, and people think that people probably count them out right now. I wouldn't be shocked if they could maybe steal a few games, maybe shock. I don't know if they could shock the Lakers or the Clippers or any of those teams, but it wouldn't be surprising if they would take any team to like a 7 game series.
I can
Yeah,
feel that.
I feel that.
But how excited are you guys though, man? What? It's 4 days away.
So I was talking to Ryan on the Zero Tech podcast the other day, and I'll tell you, we were fiending for sports so bad. I was telling him the other day on Father's Day, my cousins are pretty rich, and they go down to Florida every summer or whatever. And I'm not really close with them, but they love my grandfather. They're very close with him. So for Father's Day, we went to their house, used their pool and stuff. It got so hot, and I wanted sports so bad. I went in and watched NASCAR.
No.
I was like, I just want something competitive. Like, I couldn't tell you who won or what the times were, nothing like that. I don't even know if that matters, but I was just like, I want to watch some organized sport.
I feel that. I feel that. NASCAR.
I mean, you know, I've been seeing all those. I've been seeing all those memes ever since all the protests started and people started showing their true colors. And one of my favorite memes is, I never in a million years would have expected the right to get Harry Potter and the left to get NASCAR. And I thought that was really funny. So I was like, you know what, whatever. But back to the sleeper teams. So, like I said, the Pacers for me are out of the East. Out of the West, I think the Trailblazers would be my sleeper team.
Yeah, out of the East, for me, it's the Heat. I don't know. I'm in love with the Heat for some reason. I have no idea why. I think it has to do with Jimmy Butler and Kendrick Nunn and just those, bulldogs they have on their team. I love it. Out of the West, I would have to say the Nuggets, right? Like they're not like your traditional sleeper, but when you have LeBron and the Lakers and Kawhi and the Clippers in your same conference, that's a tough road. So I'm gonna have to say the Nuggets on that one.
I respect that, my friend. I really, really do. Do you guys remember when Jimmy Butler was supposed to be a Celtic, and then the Bulls were like, "Nah, we're not going to trade him for your awesome trade package. We're going to trade him for a bag of chips."
Man, that's just both management, man. Don't get me started on that. That's just a can of worms you don't want to open right now, bro.
Oh man, I don't know. I thought it was incredibly funny.
Yeah, man. Try.
Listen, though, I wonder how different the Celtics would be if they did get Jimmy Butler. But
I wouldn't think they would be too different just because they have, Jimmy Butler type of players. You feel me?
Right. No, I get you. I just think the chemistry might not have all been there. The team might not seem as complete, I guess you could say.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler gets a bad rap, man. I don't know.
I love him to death. I think he's great.
About him being a bad teammate, man. He just wants you to work hard. Like, I don't know. I just think that, it's kind of propaganda to say he's a bad teammate at this point.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I remember when, he had all that rough chemistry with the Timberwolves, and all those guys were like, all of our young stars can beat you, and he's like, no, they can't. And then they were like, yes, they can. So him and a bunch of 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds went and walloped Cat and all that.
Yeah,
I thought that was funny.
No,
he's talented. He is a talented man.
He works hard, bro. He works hard for real.
But not only is basketball coming back, and and sports are going to get a whole lot more interesting because we have baseball coming back soon, and that I'm really excited for. I'm a huge baseball fan. I am disappointed with the Boston Red Sox, to say the least. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on baseball coming back?
I'm really excited for the White Sox season. I don't know. I watched a couple of their preseason games. I know it's preseason. I know not to get excited, all of that, blah blah blah. But they were looking really good in off season. They have a few bats, and hopefully their bullpen and things like that hold up for the season. So I'm really excited for the White Sox.
What about you, Ahmed? Are you gonna be watching any baseball? I know you're fiending for sports too.
Uh, I'm not really into baseball, but I am curious about the playoffs.
Okay.
That's just my thing. I don't know enough about the MLB, but I mean, I might catch a Yankees game, a Mets game, to learn more about it. But otherwise, I've not really been into it.
So I love baseball, right? I used to go to Red Sox games all the time. I love watching baseball. I very much value baseball. I love the game. I love everything about it. And statistically, I know quite a bit about baseball. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot about what's going on right now, but we do have a guest joining us. His name is Adam. He's from the Back Sports Page team as well. Everyone, let's welcome Adam into the show. How you doing, Adam?
Good. How are you, Jared?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for joining us today. So tell us, what's going on in the baseball world?
Well, the baseball season finally happened after 2 months of negotiations and several proposals between the MLB Player Association and the owners as well. So it's a big sigh of relief for so many baseball fans across the country. And it came at a bit of an expense, too, because there's only going to be 60 games. Players have already tested positive for COVID. And a lot of people don't know that the Player Association gave up a lot just to have the season and hold on to their grievance, which they really wanted to keep on against the owners for delaying the season so long.
Yeah, so I did see a lot of that. I did see a lot of, negotiations back and forth, back and forth. Now, from my understanding, is that a lot of players were upset. They were somewhat insulted with a lot of the offers that the league was throwing at them, and they would counteract with another offer. And I vividly remember one. It was one of the more recent ones. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. There was an offer from the league that was 60 games and 90% prorated salary. And the players responded, "We'll do it for that pay, but we want to play 70 games." And then the league was insulted by that, and it took them, however long to finally come to some sort of agreement. Do you think it would have been better for the players to play more games, or do you think less games is better?
Well, I think the players were trying to make a point in getting fully prorated salary in the first place, and also at the same time they were trying to certainly leverage the owners, because the owners kept saying several times in a row that they were going to pay them around 33 to 35% of their pro or full season salary, and 60 games wasn't enough. So it still isn't that much, because I think now it's 37%, which isn't too big of a jump. But they had 70, that would obviously be a lot better too.
Right. So how does this affect the playoffs? Are they going to just do the playoffs in the same time frame as these next few months? Just going to be regular season, then come September, October is going to be, playoffs, World Series, or how's that going to work?
The playoffs will be as they normally are. It'll be 10 teams making the playoffs, 5 teams per league. However, the only thing that will be different is that because of a shorter season, a lot of fringe teams can make it, or if a very good team goes off to a bad start, that could be their end of their 2020 playoff run. Okay.
Well, I'm I'm assuming you're rooting for the Yankees?
Yeah.
Okay. I myself, my buddy and I, we're big Boston sports fans, but due to the cheating scandals that the Red Sox were involved with Alex Cora, and, there being one person, I feel like one rotten apple kind of spoils the bunch in the case of cheating if no one's going to stop it. So we decided that this season we're going to be Toronto Blue Jays fans. And for no other reason, I've always liked the Blue Jays, but I love Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and his dad was one of my favorite players back in the day. And I was actually blessed that I got to meet him, so that was really cool. But yeah, I'm excited. I am really excited. Do you think that this will be the new normal for baseball if this is successful, like less games?
No, this is certainly a one-time thing. I think most people are still geared for baseball being 162 games. There's been talks of maybe shorting it back to kind of the 1960 version of 154 games, but at the end of the day, it's not too much. If they were to shorten the regular season a bit, they'd probably extend the postseason more, probably getting that extra revenue. So we could see maybe a change of that type next year, but this will be the only year we'll see about 60 games.
I think that'd be a good idea, though. An extended playoff. I mean, playoff baseball is by far one of the most exciting things in sports. I don't care who you are or if you love or hate baseball. Those September nights where bottom of the ninth, 2 strikes, 3 balls and 2 outs, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what's gonna happen?" And I live for that stuff. I live for playoff baseball. Same with playoff hockey too. Playoff hockey is also really exciting.
I did have a question for Adam as well. So you know how baseball is trying to like up their profile when it comes to viewership with the other sports, like in comparison with the other sports like basketball and football. Do you think that playing these games while other games can't be played, would that do you think that will uplift their profile as far as viewership and like as for fans as well, like getting new fans?
I think a couple months ago it certainly would have, because, well, baseball will still return at a time where most major sports are not going on. I guess you could say golf a little bit, but even that one's to an extent. But with these negotiations that were very publicized and very tone deaf to the situation, because they're arguing over millions and billions of dollars while hundreds of thousands of Americans are unemployed right now. So a lot of people were not really happy with baseball for these past 2 months. And even though they'll come back first by maybe a week or two, it won't really add too much revenue, won't really add too many new fans. They've actually lost a lot of casual fans because they delayed the season for that much longer than they should have.
Now, what solutions do you think the MLB could come up with to get those casual fans back? I mean, obviously, we see it fairly often that baseball is kind of on the bottom of a lot of people's radars. The common thing that I hear, at least personally from people, is baseball's boring. There's not a lot that happens. And when I talk about baseball, I will go off about pitcher duels and the different, little techniques and nuances of the game of how to throw a proper curveball or anything like that. And I think the intricacies of baseball are the most impressive. I think for a hitter, knowing how to hit that, deep slider or whatever, I think is awesome. But what can the league do to get some of the lost fans back, to get back some of those casual fans?
In short, what they can do is they can have players a lot more mic'd up. They were starting to do that, I think, this spring training. And right, exactly. It's just hilarious. Like, you hear Chris Bryant going off, being like, "Ooh, fastball, fastball, fastball," and then he goes after it. Then he just starts like running the bases, and it's amazing. So that would be a lot of fun. And also promos. I'm not sure how much you guys are aware of this. If you're not, I'm speaking specifically to Tyrone Ahmed about minor league baseball, but they have really, really crazy promotional ideas. I've been at Louisiana Baby Cates game where they have like a baby hitting a home run with like on their hats. They have the Staten Island Yankees / Pizza Rats. Like, they have these wild names. They have all sorts of promotions. This minor league baseball is kind of failing getting revenue. And honestly, all these promotional ideas are really, really smart. And if baseball were to incorporate more of them, that would help too. However, long term, if they really wanted to get more fans, they should allow more people to use their broadcasts or broadcast games that are owned, because that could create more viewership and more YouTubers to try to like stream the game. And even individually, just sitting down with someone who wants to know about baseball and just telling them that intricacies that Jared was talking about, that would certainly help too.
Yeah, I think it's important that you bring up miking the players up, right? Because I was watching a few preseason games, as I alluded to earlier, and that was amazing, man. Just to see Chris Bryant, talk about the Astros and cheating in real time, must see TV. So I think they definitely need to bring that back. Also bring back Jordan if they want the minor leagues to profile to come back. I don't know. I don't know if much can be done about the minor leagues, but yeah, man, I agree with you there.
So I do have another question. So, what is the scene going to look like with fans? Are there going to be fans in the stadiums? How are they going to be doing that?
Well, as of now, there's no fans during the season, of course, and we talked about this on the Ites and Vila podcast with Henry and Ryan Morick, and we were kind of discussing how, well, also Zach Diamond as well, how, okay, if there's going to be fans and one person gets sick or one person dies from it, that'll look so bad for the individual team. So
Right.
they may not want to take that chance. On the other hand, if they were to socially distance themselves, I'm working here in Illinois for a collegiate baseball team, and they're having half capacity, but just spreading them out by rows. I think that's not a bad idea. Or you could go even further, like they have done in some of the Asian baseball leagues. I think one of the leagues had set stalls in the stands, which was hilarious, and then they got fined. Another league had they had like SpongeBob, and they had a lot of stuffed animals there just to fill up the rows. And even if they don't have fans, that is a very funny way to go.
Yeah, I think that that makes a lot of sense because I feel like the fans are out of all major sports. I feel like the fans for baseball are the most important. Um, you know, aside like in the NBA, aside from really throwing a free throw, you don't have the fans like trying to distract the other team. But I mean, you have it with pitchers, people playing outfield, batters, kind of everybody, and I feel like the fans make a world of difference for those players. But you guys brought up a good point with the minor league not getting enough revenue. Obviously, we see in the NBA, we see like the G League, but do you think it would be smarter if in the MLB they did sort of like a mini camp thing like the NFL does? You have some rookies come in and they all try out for extended period of time. Do you think that would work in baseball, or do you think they should leave it as it is?
I think as it is, honestly, it can still help these minor league players. And baseball's a little bit different than the G League, of course, because there's 5 or 6 levels before you make the majors. And you're not going to send someone up from rookie ball unless they're an absolute stud. And even then, super rare to right to the majors. But that's why there's spring training. That's why during September they increased the roster to 40 players from 25 or 26. That's why right now during the Corona season, they're having like a 30-man taxi squad just go in between the majors and just not play at all, and just in case you need extra players on the roster. So I think they get their shot pretty fairly, and there could be some changes to it, but I think right now it's not a bad system in that regard.
Yeah, I was gonna add that it would be tough for them to change up their system only because baseball is like a really like situational mechanics and like just technique and like awareness type of game where you can't just pick it up and automatically be good. You have to learn, like you have to learn the game, and there's no way that athleticism can just boost up your playing profile, right? So I think that it would be hard for them to just have like a mini camp or things like that for the younger players because everybody needs that experience, man. Everybody needs that play. You feel me?
I think that's a fair assessment.
I think I have.
Yeah,
I have one more question. As far as so last season, the netting around the stadium was a big topic. As far as keeping the fans safe and all of that. But it's kind of died out, right? I think only a couple teams actually have netting around the whole stadium. Do you think that that's still a big button issue that they're still working those things out, or you just think that kind of just died out?
I think it's kind of died out just because it hasn't been in the media for so long, but there's probably someone going to be hit in the near future, as awful as that sounds. It's just inevitable because there's so many foul balls during the regular season. I bet you once someone gets hit again, those talks will stir up, even though it's so rare and usually they're all right. They just don't want any of those instances to happen. So I'm sure they'll come up at some point when I guess someone gets hits again, or when baseball is fully fledged in with the season, then you might see more rules like that.
Shout out to the White Sox, by the way, for getting that situated. Yeah, I just kind of thought that was interesting because we talk about how issues get played up and it's like always in the cycle until it kind of gets phased out the cycle. So I think that it's pretty interesting if they revise or go back to that issue that they have.
Ahmed, I think you said you had a question for Adam.
Yeah, I guess I would just wonder, like, from all we're talking about, is there anything that you can think of, like, from besides what we're talking now, like that might affect baseball or that might come out of this in the long run, like from what we haven't mentioned?
Well, one of the things that we talked yesterday on the Ice and Field podcast was they added this new rule, and it might just be for this season, or it could be longer, is that in any extra inning, the runner will start out on second base. Now, that could be really fun because for the casual fan, they're not going to watch a whole 3-hour plus game. If they turn on the TV, it's the 10th inning, there's a runner on second base, and your team has a really good chance of winning. Well, then you might see small ball, you might see true fundamental baseball. That's very exciting since it's already in extra innings, which is always a lot of fun. So that might be here to stay. It also brings in a lot of unique strategy because how it works is someone who bats, like, let's say the number 4 hitter strikes out in the 9th inning. The next inning, they'll be the one who starts out on second base, or they can replace him with pinch runner. So if a really speedy guy who just purposely strikes out, he could lead off the next inning and try to get that key running for the team.
That's dangerous.
Exactly. That's really cool. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome. So another question I have for you, and obviously this is a little bit old news. Mookie Betts is no longer a Red Sox. He's on the Dodgers. I was hoping to have seen some action by now, but obviously with COVID and kind of how everything's shaped up, we don't know what the landscape of the league is going to look like in terms of how good teams are going to be. So obviously the Red Sox lost a major key piece in Mookie Betts. They didn't really get as good a return as a lot of people had hoped. And as far as I'm aware, there's been some pretty big name trades going on in the league. How do you think those trades affect the landscape? What teams do you think that maybe from last season weren't as good are kind of going to be better now, and vice versa? Teams that were really good last season might not be as good.
Well, just to add on to your example, like the Dodgers who got Mookie Betts, of course, well, they've missed the World Series or just missed winning the World Series in 2017 and 2018. Now they had a Mookie Betts, and they already had a stud of a right fielder stud of an outfielder in Cody Bellinger, who also play first base. Now they have Betts, which is even better, and also another starter in David Price, which helps offset losing Hyunjin Ryu, Rich Hill, and Kenta Maeda. So that certainly helps. And you also have teams just trying to sign big free agents, such as the Angels, for example. They signed Anthony Rendon. And, of course, Trout's only been in one playoffs back in 2014. Didn't do that well. Angels lost in 3 or 4 games. And people were saying, well, Trout's legacy is hurt because of that. Well, now they have this big free agent, so that could certainly help the Angels. Or the Twins, who already had 307 home runs, a major league record last year. They added Josh Donaldson, the former MVP, who had 37 home runs last season. So a lot of teams are trying to improve in that regard. You mentioned the Blue Jays earlier, added a lot of good pitchers. They signed this one pitcher from Japan, Shun Yamaguchi. So that'll be a lot of fun too. The Rays and Padres swapped a couple players. The Padres got another speed guy in Tommy Pham, so maybe they'll be competitive. It can definitely shake things up, and anything's possible in a shortened season.
Absolutely, and I say that my football is my number one sport. I mean, you could catch me on the Zero Tech podcast talking for an hour with Ryan Stern about that, and I could probably list every player on almost any roster. So, but I agree. Like you said, any given season, anything can happen, and you brought up one player in particular that is one of my personal favorites. And on the Trifecta, we don't really shy away from the intellectual conversation of sports, and we like to talk about the what ifs and stuff like that. So, in my opinion, I genuinely believe Mike Trout is the greatest baseball player to have ever stepped onto the diamond. Who do you think is the greatest?
Babe Ruth, only because he would have been a Hall of Fame pitcher and a Hall of Fame hitter. He actually, if you've heard of Walter Johnson, who had the record for most shutouts of all time, Babe Ruth beat him in about 5 1-0 contests, and he already accumulated around 70 wins as a pitcher, and then he turns a hitter and obviously pretty much changed the entire game of baseball. So he'll always be number one for me, but I could see Mays, I can see Trout, I can see Mantle, I can see Cobb as, or Aaron, and Bonds too, if depending on your view of steroids. I don't care either way. I think he's still one of the GOATs. So all those players are certainly in that conversation.
I was actually talking about Barry Bonds the other day. My mom and I were talking about, the whole thing with Chris Benoit a bunch of years back with the wrestler who he killed his wife and his youngest kid. And it's a very sad situation, but the WWE, I guess, kind of stripped him of his legacy after that. They didn't put him in the Hall of Fame, and they signed contracts saying that they're not allowed to talk about him, and that if a player or if an athlete in the WWE does talk about them, that they can be removed. And I could be wrong on this. This is just from what I'm hearing. I don't know anything about wrestling, but the one thing I said is I feel like, yeah, sure, what he did was awful, but he also had a mental disease and CTE. And I was like, I feel like stripping his legacy away from him would be like taking Barry Bonds out of the Hall of Fame for steroids. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. I think steroids, or not necessarily steroids, but yeah, I mean, I guess you could say steroids, I think are an important part of sports. Not obviously for cheating, but especially in a sport like football and hockey, you got these big, 300-pound, 250-pound guys tackling each other and checking each other into glass.
That's why they don't need them, bro.
But that's what I'm saying. But you would think they would, because they're putting their bodies on the line. You know what I mean? Like, they are putting their bodies on the line every Sunday. In hockey's case, multiple times a week. Obviously in baseball it's a little bit different, but I've personally never seen an issue with steroids in sports, as long as everybody's on an even playing field.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think when you start saying that, steroids are okay, that's a slippery slope. Like, yeah, I can see your argument for football, but even for football, the formula for force is mass times acceleration. So do you really want those guys to be any bigger than they already are, running at the speed that they're already running, maybe faster with the steroids, creating more force? I don't think so. So like once you start getting in the area of performance enhancing drugs, I go with that. No one needs them. Like, if you need them, then you don't need to be really playing the sport. That's cheating at that point.
I respect it. I do. What were you going to say, Adam?
Well, players will always, of course, try to get the advantage. Willie Mays even took greenies. Babe Ruth, he took like an animal's testosterone and injected it in his arm, which is just insane, and that kind of helped him. So players will always find another type of way to try to get better. However, I think you're right, Tyrone, and how it's a slippery slope, because once you say it's okay to take P&Ds, well, you don't want future players, future kids who are watching these celebrities, who are watching these athletes, to say, hey, if I want to be really good, I want to inject PEDs into my system, which is never a good idea. So I think if like players served a suspension, like A-Rod, for example, he served that suspension. Terrible what he did. I was the biggest A-Rod fan, but he served.
I was not.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, of course. You're a Red Sox fan.
I think you lost a lot.
No, I mean, I was upset because, A-Rod wanted to take a pay cut to come to Boston, and then the league was like, no, you can't. And it's like, come on, like, we're not a destination city. No one wants to come here. But we have some of the best teams.
It was also during the 86-year drought, too, so that didn't make it any better.
Ah, man, it was so upsetting. But it was really sweet when Veritek, kind of got the best of them. And I argued with Ryan Morick about this on Twitter. Watch that fight. Veritek won. I don't care.
He did. I'll admit that too.
Ryan Morick thinks A-Rod won. And I'm like, listen, A-Rod was an idiot. He took off his helmet and he's trying to punch Jason Veritek through a catcher's mask. Come on.
It was just dumb. Like Veritek put him like in a chokehold. Like he obviously won that one.
Yeah, it was. But no, I was actually at that game. I used to go to Red Sox games all the time as a kid. I was telling them before you joined on. Just baseball is a huge part of my life. And my mom actually, at the time, she had one of the better cameras on the market. And she has a picture of both teams, of two separate pictures that when you put them together, you see the bench clearing before they like started fist fighting.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's very impressive. That's really cool your mom has that shot.
Yeah, but I don't know. I miss sports. I miss baseball. I miss it all. I feel like, especially with everything going on right now, I feel like the world just needs something to take their mind off of, like to kind of shut off their mind and just be like, you know what? Reality is somewhat back. I can turn on the TV and watch sports.
You know what's interesting about what you just said about that is I was watching First Take earlier today, and Stephen A. asked Darius Leonard. He asked him, "Are you a part of the side of the coin that says that we should play because it uplifts our platform, or are you part of the people that say that sports are too big of a distraction that that they can't advocate for social issues that they want to, like they want to?" And Leonard said that it's a platform to even uplift their platform that they already have, right? So if everybody's watching them and they're also like saying social statements at the same time, that more people are gonna be receptive. Well, not receptive, but more people are gonna be exposed to it because they're the only thing on TV. So I love that part of the game. So yeah, it's a distraction, but it's also like that you can't hide away from what they're saying, because if you want to watch them, you're gonna have to listen to what they have to say.
All right, so real quick, we do have a comment from Mr. Ryan Morick saying A-Rod beat his ass. It didn't happen, bro. I love you to death. It didn't happen.
I might have to rewatch it at least.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's a fair assessment. I will come on Exit Velo the next episode. I will rewatch the fight. We'll all rewatch it, and we'll go from there. How's that sound? I think that's a pretty fair trade.
I think so.
But there is a tweet that was going around that I've seen a lot of athletes share, namely Mecole Hardman, because he was very adamant about his stance on this. It was the most difficult, or sports ranked by difficulty. And in order for, there's 60 of them. I am going to only do the top 10. So from number 1 down to number 10, it goes boxing, ice hockey, football, basketball, wrestling, martial arts, tennis, gymnastics, baseball/softball, and then soccer. According to the Twitter sphere, a lot of people don't agree with that list.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it either. I mean, I think hockey should be up there. I think boxing should be up there, but I don't. As somebody who's played football, somebody who who's kind of studied it, I don't think football should be that high up there. I think baseball should be a lot higher. The one that Mecole Hardman was so adamant about was gymnastics. Like, I think he was fighting for that to probably be like number 1 or 2. But what do you guys see with that? Like, do you think baseball is put in a reasonable spot, or like, what do you guys think of that in general?
I think baseball should be higher. I played baseball. It's not easy. Like I said earlier, it's so much of technique and awareness that's involved. Like, you have to have experience to play baseball, and you're not going to be great when you first pick up a bat and a glove. You're not. It's just you're not going to be good at it just off of pure athleticism. So it definitely should be up.
What number do you think it should be?
It should definitely be in the top 5.
Top 5?
Definitely be in the top 5.
Sure.
And I think that they missed the sport.
Which one?
They missed fencing, man.
Fencing. I think it's on here. Let me just take a look.
Fencing should be higher if it's up there, because No one plays fencing. You need a personal coach for fencing. Like it's already a sport that you kind of have to have money to be in to even like have the opportunity to play the sport.
Fencing is considered the 24th most difficult
Yeah,
sport.
it should be top 10 by far.
Okay, Adam, what do you think?
Baseball certainly needs to be top five. Tyrone, you mentioned how baseball is a very technical sport. There's actually a lot of tip tops going around, of course. Not that I'm a big tip top person because tip tops are kind of gross, but I like this baseball tip tops, of course, because why not? And they're saying baseball athletes can play almost any other sport, but most athletes of other sports can't play baseball. So it's like if you had a random basketball player, or even if LeBron were just to pick a bat and face some of the best in the game, throwing 95 miles per hour and having 85-mile-per-hour sliders, he probably wouldn't be able to do too much. That's not to say LeBron isn't athletic; it just requires a different type of hand-eye coordination, a different type of skill.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that MJ was like passable, right? I think it's amazing that he made a roster, like even a minor league roster. Like it's crazy how like difficult baseball is.
I mean, we're seeing it more and more though. Like, look at Kyler Murray. He was drafted number one in both the MLB and the NFL. I mean, granted, I don't know if he would be able to, now while it's the NFL offseason going, be like, you know what, I'm going to go play some baseball. I mean, we know Russell Wilson just got traded from the Rangers to the Yankees. And I thought that was really funny. When I heard that, I was like, "What?" I didn't even know he was drafted. That was surprising. Yeah, so I guess I don't think they pay him. I don't think he's like paid or like has a contract or anything like that. But I don't know. It's weird to me. But I mean, it is what it is at this point. I mean, look at Deion Sanders. Like he played, both baseball and football. And
Exactly.
from my understanding, he was really good at baseball. I mean, I don't know how good, but he was good. But no, back to the sports by difficulty. I agree. I think baseball should be higher up. I think figure skating is 19th. I feel like figure skating should be top 10. I don't even know how to ice skate. Okay? I don't. My girlfriend tried to take me, and I couldn't do it. So.
Yeah, I run away from every opportunity to ice skate.
Right?
I don't want to fall on my butt. Like it's that simple.
Yeah, no, it is that easy.
The ground gets harder the older you get, man. I'm good on that one.
No, it really does. But man, oh god, it's just nice to be able to talk and be like, "Oh, I'm looking forward to sports," and like they're coming back. Oh man, it's so nice.
Before we end, I do want to, do a Mount Rushmore of baseball players since we have Adam Cohen on the show. I don't think that would be a good idea.
So, I mean, we could talk about that right now. Let's do that. Let's do a Mount Rushmore of baseball players. Tyrone, we'll start with you. It was your idea. We'll save the best for last. We'll save the most educated guy about baseball for last.
All right. I'm gonna go with Derek Jeter. America's shortstop. I'm gonna go with Babe Ruth, like you said, one of the forefathers of baseball. One of those guys that like Stephen Curry, game breakers. He definitely broke the game. I gotta go Jackie Robinson because he broke the color barrier. That's a no-brainer right there. And then I'm gonna go with one of my favorite players, which is Albert Pujols, man. I don't know. There's nothing like the machine. So those are my four right there.
Man, I loved Albert Pujols back when I was a kid. Loved him. He was one of my favorite players. What about you, Ahmed?
Well, I don't know enough about baseball, but I'm gonna say I would start with Derek Jeter because he's the like most famous baseball player that I'm aware of. So just from my limited knowledge, I'd say Babe Ruth because I knew of him like just growing, even though I didn't know how great he was. It just he originated. I when I think Babe Ruth, I always think of the chocolate. I always thought of the chocolate, and I was like, oh, Babe Ruth. There you go. That's, without having with barely watching any baseball, I feel like yeah. Oh, okay, that's how I know who Babe Ruth is. I've seen pictures. Oh, there you go. I think he actually like mentioned in a few shows and stuff like that. But yeah, obviously I'm gonna go Jackie Robinson, like without question. Like he broke the he's I would say I would call him like one of the pioneers of baseball. So of course like he's I don't know like the Muhammad Ali you know he's in the pantheon of forget baseball just sports legends. And so he'd be my number two. Uh, I would say Lou Gehrig for that's
Mm.
just like my dart throw for what he kind of represents and what he was and his legacy afterward. I think I put him in my Mount Rushmore just for that reason alone. Um, and then I think my fourth would be Mickey Mantle. Again,
That's
very limited baseball knowledge, but
baseball.
these are, in my opinion,
This man's a baseball historian.
I got to do it.
All right. So for me, man, most of my, I guess, obviously, if we're talking, like you guys said, we got Jackie Robinson and stuff like that, and a lot of like Babe Ruth and the older players. But my Mount Rushmore is a few more modern players that kind of changed the game for what it's worth. So number one, Derek Jeter. I think we're all in agreement on that. Derek Jeter is in my opinion, he is the face of baseball. Actually, I have on my Twitter a shameless plug here. On my Twitter, I have my top 5 most influential athletes of all time. Derek Jeter, I believe, is my number 3 or 4 because even if you don't know baseball, you know who Derek Jeter is. You know what he's accomplished, and he, to me, is like the Kobe Bryant of the MLB. So number 1 is Derek Jeter. Number 2 is David Ortiz.
I love David Ortiz.
I'm not even saying this as a Red Sox fan, and anytime you catch me on a podcast or a show or whatever, I will say I'm not being a homer. I mean, I'm wearing a Toronto Raptors jersey and I live in Boston, so come on. But the David Ortiz is the most clutch hitter of all time.
Yeah,
he is by far one of the best players to have ever played the game, and he changed the game for what it is. I mean, if it wasn't for him, who knows how long the Red Sox drought would have gone on. I mean, he just is I don't know. I'm at a loss for words describing David Ortiz. My number
Big
3.
Poppy. There you go.
Yeah, Big Pop.
Yeah, there we go.
My number 3 would be Mike Trout. I said it earlier in the show. Mike Trout, to me, is the greatest baseball player to have ever played the game. And I'm going to compare it to the NBA for a second. You see what LeBron James does game in and game out, especially in the postseason, triple-double after triple-double after triple-double. You see Kevin Durant do it once, and the media exploded. They were like, oh, my God, Kevin Durant did this, he did what? And freaked out. Mike Trout puts up, in baseball terms, the LeBron James equivalent of stats.
Yeah.
Day in and day out. But then you see players like Mookie Betts, who I'm not taking away from him. He's an incredible player, but he doesn't do what Mike Trout does on a daily. And then when he does it, he gets the more recognition. So Mike Trout for me is my number 3. My number 4, and I think Adam is going to appreciate this one, is Mariano Rivera. Mariano Rivera is the most influential closer to have ever played baseball, in my opinion. He was one of the best pitchers I ever watched growing up. Just when he stepped out onto the mound and that, bought that 8th inning, that 9th inning, that was it. Chances were you weren't winning that game. If he's coming out onto that mound, it's over. It's over. So for me, that is my Mount Rushmore baseball.
Well, I think you all have some pretty good lists, and I will say that Jeter and Robinson are not on my Mount Rushmore of baseball. Now, both of them have had great influence in the game. Robinson broke the color barrier, which of course was the ban against African Americans from playing. There was actually a couple of, like, African Americans who played like early or late 19th century, early 20th century, which is very interesting. So that was like kind of before they instituted that ban. Then you also have Derek Jeter, who, yes, he's perhaps the greatest offensive shortstop of all time, but I still think Ladner is better. I still think that Cal Ripken's a little better. I still think that people in their prime were better. You remember Garcia Parra, of course, Jared.
Yep.
In his prime, he was better than Jeter. Of course he was. Like, no doubt about it.
I won't disagree with you on that.
Yeah. So I would have to say for my Mount Rushmore, it would be Babe Ruth, of course, first. I think before he started really hitting, the home run record at the time was 13. His first year as hitter, he hit around 28. And then he also was the first player to hit 60 home runs when no one was even close to doing it at the time. He had more home runs in a single season than teams did the entire year. It was ridiculous. He broke baseball. Another player broke baseball, Barry Bonds. I can't imagine a single player who would get walked 232 times now. Even Mike Trout, of course. That's just unbelievable. That broke an age-old record from Babe Ruth. And he also broke his previous record of 198, like the year before. It's incredible. So Bonds is up there too. If we want to go barrier-wise, and someone who really instituted the game as well, besides Robinson, and is also an amazing Hall of Famer, Sandy Koufax, just give a pitcher in there too. Pete Koufax may have been the greatest pitcher ever. Pete Pedro, of course, can go in there too. Pete Mannix. But Pete Koufax seems like no one did anyone better. So he has to be my number 2 there. Willie Mays, of course, did everything all around. So he's my number 4. Actually, no, I said Ruth, Bonds, Koufax, and Mays. Yeah, those are my 4.
I dig it. Man, I feel left out. I was all my players were modern. I mean, modern, I guess, early to mid 2000s, but
Casual, man.
Yeah, casual. Nah, come on. I feel like Adam, agree to disagree or agree. I don't know if you're going to agree with me. I feel like early to mid 2000s was the most exciting time for baseball.
Well, I would say it all started from that home run chase in '98, because that's kind of what brought baseball back from the brink of destruction after the whole 1994 strike. So I think from then on, and then having Bonds, just Pete second tier Bonds, because he was great with the Pirates too. That also brought baseball well. You had emergence of Pujols and Ortiz and Howard. Yeah, early 2000s baseball was excellent. You had A-Rod there too, when people didn't realize he took steroids. So
even Manny Ramirez, he was. Yeah. Everybody, I saw that tweet of him and Big Papi on Twitter, that picture, and I did not recognize him. And now I guess he's trying to play in like the Taiwanese league or something.
He's done it before.
Yeah, and I'm like, go you. Like, you're old as hell, but come on. I mean, you got this. Anyway, guys, I think that is all the time we have. Adam, thank you so much for coming on. I guess we'll start with you. Tell everybody where they can find you and, what shows you're on, stuff like that. Go ahead and promote yourself.
Well, you can obviously promote the Twitter handle. It's right down there. And, of course, follow all these guys too, Jared, Tyrone, and Ahmed. They're all excellent as well. You can also find me on Exit Velo or just my articles on Bat Sports page. So, follow all of us, honestly. We all post great content.
Is Exit Velo on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. And just like them, the Trifecta is also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. You can follow me on Twitter at JournalistJ0. I'm right there. Tyrone, Ahmed, tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at _Talk Sports. You can find me at Facebook, Tyrone Starworth, my name. And you can find me on Twitter at TYEE_3.
Yeah, you can find me at Twitter, People1194, Instagram at Ahmed Shifa 298, and Facebook is Ahmed Shifa.
Awesome. Well, guys, until next time, you guys have a wonderful night. Adam, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate
And
it.
listen, I mean, I love talking sports in general, and
Appreciate it, man.
so again, thank you guys, and you all have a wonderful night.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys too.